Dorian. Chapter 1. You have overslept, Commander. It's time to wake up. Wake up, Commander, the computer voice came in low and melodious, seductive and almost dreamlike. There is a spaceship approaching, and it's not one of ours. Wake up. I detected a cloaking device, but then I'm very knowledgeable, don't you think, Captain Dorian? The soothing, soft-spoken computer voice was like a female seducing Captain Dorian, with her slow, erotic sound. One he had requested to be programmed throughout the ship. He didn't want a harsh voice alarming his crew in space. But now, instead of waking them, it was putting everyone at ease, which could be good or bad. But at this time, it was the worst thing that could happen to him and his crew because he didn't stir. The voice messenger, named Thalia, a Greek name for good cheer, and named by Captain Dorian of the Star Splitter, went on and on begging him to answer, and still not a word from him. Although the voice messenger meant good cheer, and her voice still carried the sound of a peaceful existence aboard the Star Splitter, there would be no good cheer coming this morning. Wake up, Commander. It's time. You are needed on deck. When Thalia couldn't get a response, her voice elevated to a higher pitch. You should be at the command station. Now. Emergency. Emergency. System failure. And yet no answer, even as she amped up the sound. Captain Charles Dorian lay in his bed in his cabin of white furniture and chrome tables and lamps, surrounded by a large digital screen showing pictures of life on Earth. It silently changed pictures from snow-capped mountains to green meadows with deer trotting along and drinking in a river. Pictures of bygone eras flashed across the screen in silence. Pictures of dogs running and jumping in lush green backyards, and their masters throwing balls and the dogs chasing them. That was his only connection to the planet Earth, that and the warm body next to him. Charles Dorian turned to his left and wrapped his arms around the woman lying beside him, curling into his body. She too deep in slumber with her head in his chest. He deserved the closeness of Lieutenant Jessie Braggs. He deserved her because he had waited 5 years to sleep with her, to have her in his arms, and enter the warmth of her heated opening. Her eyes possessed him from the day she set foot on board the Star Splitter. She was a new recruit and a junior officer, and he had watched her become one of the best astronauts aboard his ship. She had grown and showed uncanny abilities in leadership and expertise of the different commands, and he had promoted her. He knew eventually she would become captain of her own ship when the second Star Splitter would be built and ready to travel the universe in search of enormous stars that could threaten the Earth and other planets. But no longer could he deny the attraction he felt for her, and maybe she felt for him. Jessie stepped aboard his ship when she was 18, and he was 25, with him being the youngest commander ever to graduate from the Science Academy for Astronauts, and the only specialist to graduate that year in 2198. Captain Dorian wore his gold officer emblem wings, and in the middle of the emblem a triangle with a small spacecraft between two suns. On his white one-piece uniform, he sported his captain's insignia. And on the left breast of his uniform, he proudly displayed his specialization, Star Splitter. He had many insignias to show that he had excelled in his profession, and in combat with wearing aliens on the planets in the Earth's galaxy. When Jessie marched aboard his ship, her eyes went to his impressive uniform and his handsome face. He stood over 6 feet. His shoulders wide and body hard. She could see him glance at her with a hidden smile. Her pulse speeding and her heart racing then 5 years ago when he had just received his command. Now he's a decorated officer and the captain of his own spacecraft at 25, which had been unheard of for a captain and astronaut. The only ship that was ever built to perform the job of splitting a star was launched. He was the natural choice and given that honor because he excelled in a class of 50 astronauts. When Jessie's blue eyes met the handsome Charles Dorian's gray eyes as he stood welcoming the new recruits aboard, she felt a strange and unusual pull. A feeling she had never encountered. It was as if he could short-circuit her with one look of his eyes. She lowered her head because she didn't want him to see how taken she was with him. She shouldn't have felt that way, because she didn't come to this ship to find a husband or sleep with the many bachelors aboard. She was aboard the Star Splitter to work, and as a lieutenant and officer, she worked around the clock in all departments and never tired, and this caught Dorian's attention more than the fact that she was a beautiful female on a spaceship that was primarily made up of females. Many of the females aboard let Captain Dorian know that they were available and not married and would be willing to sleep with him, but he appeared to be all business and never gave them a second look. Not even to Jessie at that time. He was the commander of a one-of-a-kind ship carrying 2,000 souls, and nothing could be more important than that, and he wouldn't risk their lives or his ship by giving in to his base instincts because he thought concentrating on females would diminish his abilities to do his job. That was until he met Jessie. Her natural blonde hair framing her young innocent face and captivating blue eyes. At the time only a teenager. Now a woman. It was all he thought about lately on the bridge. It was all he wanted, as he went about the business of being a captain of one of the largest and only ship of its kind in the Earth's space fleet. Dorian had pulled 2 24-hour shifts back-to-back because of his limited crew. He gave half of his crew a week's vacation on Starbase Ovid in the southern hemisphere of Galaxy 4. A mere 10,000 light-years away from Earth. With time travel and warp speed of space vessels having been improved some 100 years earlier, it was now perfected, and what once took 100 years to reach the outer solar system of Earth now took less time to travel from one planet to the next, and in comparison, from the Earth to the Moon in only one day. The problems which existed 100 years before, which stood in the way of space travel to the outer cosmoses, were the stars which burned so bright that it became impossible to reach even farther destinations. The ships that did try were consumed from the heat of stars more bright and powerful than the Earth's sun. No spacecrafts could be built that could withstand the temperatures, except a rare metal had been discovered on osmium in a limited supply, and it was used to build Dorian's spaceship. A mining colony had been established by the osmiums, who made a pact with Earth to mine the precious metal. In his travels throughout the universe, Dorian discovered the strong metal, brought it back to Earth, and made a treaty with its leader Lannis. And that's one of the reasons Captain Dorian was recommended as the commander of NASA's Star Splitter. The other reason, he was a specialist in splitting stars to lessen the rays and heat from huge suns, where they would then shatter into 2 or more pieces and fall away in the universe, thus making the universe free where more spaceships could travel to the faraway planets. And Dorian was the solo reason that the intergalactic treaty was developed for and between planets. He and his crew alone made it safe for everyone in the southern hemisphere of space to be able to travel from one planet to the next, to trade for food and materials to build ships that could withstand a planet's atmosphere. We are nearing a galactic storm, Captain Dorian. Wake up. Wake up. And there is the matter of a spacecraft I'm unable to identify, the computer voice said. The sound of banging on the door went unheard by Captain Dorian for a few more seconds.